Good evening, and welcome to the Missouri on the Fly podcast with tonight's guest, Jon Tupper. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Cardiac Mountain Outfitters, Woolly Bugger Fly Company, LOZ Lures, Lazy River Road Outfitters, Grumpy Platypus Hackle, and Andronimus Fly Company. And please, everyone, September 10th, we are having free Veterans Fishing Day at Montauk State Park. There's a lot of great events going on. Please, if you have any questions, shoot me a message on Facebook or check us out at www.missourionthefly.com. Good evening, John. How are you doing?
Great. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. So, we met for the first time, I guess, this year at Salbug, and I have I have been very entertained since we've met. Every time we chat, I always get a good laugh, and I learn something. If I sit down in front of you, you're tying something, I might get a good laugh, but I'm learning something while you're tying.
I'm not one of your traditional fly tires, that's for sure.
You know what's great? That's what's great about fly tying is I don't tie anything the way they tell me I should tie it. I tie it however I can make it work, and I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing about it.
Well, most of mine was self-taught. I think I'm like a lot of people nowadays. I mean, I started back in the early 90s, but it seems like nowadays, everybody, you got all the YouTubes and the videos, and we really didn't have a lot of fly tying shows back in those days, but a lot of it's self-taught, and we try to tell people a lot in the club. If you can catch this fish, it must be right.
That's for sure. And speaking of the club, you're a member of Southwest Missouri Fly Fishers, correct?
I'm a member of a lot of clubs. I am. My home club is called the Mako Fly Fishers, based out of Joplin. I
Mm-hmm.
am the vice president of that organization. I was not one of the founding members, but I was one of the first members back in 1988. I've done about 3 different stints. I got started, and then I had kids and got into baseball and other things that took my weekends, and kind of got out of fly fishing for a while, then got back in and got back out. Then I'm back in, and I've been in now for about 7 years, I think, with the club. I write the newsletter, and I do the banquet, and then obviously I'm involved in a lot of projects with the club. But I am also a member of the Southwest Missouri Fly Fishers in Springfield, and I'm also a member of the Tri-Lakes Fly Club that's based out of Bolivar.
Busy man, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's important to support those fly clubs and those organizations that are within distance. I mean, I go maybe to half the Springfield meetings. I make a few less Tri-Lakes meetings than that because of the distance. But even some buddies over in Oklahoma, I try to support them also. And I mean, I think that's how sport grows. It's just supporting each other and trying to be a part of all their activities.
Something that we actually were talking about before the show started was relationships. Fly
Right?
fishing, fly tying, it's all about relationships. You meet a lot of great people. You meet some sour ones too, but throughout the whole process of, well, I call it a process, but the I don't know, the run in fly fishing is you meet all these great people and you take something from everyone. Yeah, and you give stuff as well, but you take something as in, they do this better tying, or they teach you something about fly fishing that you didn't know, a casting lesson or something from everyone, and you give in return, and that's something that we all do really well. As far as
Well, I think it's just important to be involved in you around people. I think that's what COVID kind of hurt so much, was that it forced everybody away from each other, and it's just, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I belong to those 3 clubs. I'm also a Trout Unlimited member in Arkansas. I belong to the Federation and have for many, many years. Um, like a lot of things, you meet a lot of interesting people. and I've lost friends over the years. When you talk about relationships, Steve Jensen and Larry Wagman were just two great friends of mine that I met at Salbug, and for some reason we just got along and hit it off. And Steve was an amazing friend, and if it hadn't have been for fly fishing and fly tying, I'd have never met him. I'd have never had a relationship and had a friendship with him. And there are a lot of those guys nowadays, and it's kind of sad in one way, but it seems like every time you lose one, you find another one. You build another relationship somewhere else. You get another friend. Some of them I fish with, some of them I tie with, some of them I just converse on Facebook with. But it's all part of the package that makes it fun and entertaining, and you enjoy doing it.
It's funny. My wife laughed at me when I came back from Salbug because she's like, "Who are all these people you're talking about? These different names, the stories I was telling. She's like, who are these people?" I said, "They're fly fishermen." It's like we're all we're the same, but we're different. We're
Well, and
wired the same.
everybody brings something to the table.
Oh yeah. When it comes to fly fishing, we're all wired the same way, but then our outside life is completely different. Um,
Some
it's
of
something.
some of us are just bigger characters than others, and are hard to forget.
That's for sure. I always think of it like when I was in the army is I knew all these people. I mean, all over the world, and still today I could walk into a room with all these people, and we would still have that in common. Those experiences, everything that we did in the army. Still, but outside of the army, most of us we wouldn't know each other if we passed each other on the street.
Well,
But
and I think that's what's fun about all the meetings and the conclaves and stuff is a lot of these guys, like yourself. I mean, I don't see you very often. We don't talk very often. There might be a text string, there might be a Facebook set up for a little bit of something for a particular topic. A lot of these guys that I consider dear friends only see 2 or 3 times a year, maybe, and that's if the conclaves and the expos go off. But you're always sharing stuff on Facebook or Instagram, and that's always kind of cool.
oh yeah, there's always something crazy wandering around between us all. That's for sure. So, what do you got going with Mako right now? You guys have some big plans for the rest of I guess, the summer into the fall.
We've done very well. COVID was hard on a lot of clubs. Excuse me, and we decided early on that we were gonna do whatever we could to make things as best as possible and try to keep everybody together. Like a lot of clubs, we went to Facebook, we went to web pages, we went to Zoom meetings. Zoom meetings were kind of cool. We were able to get some people to do some video presentations that typically live too far away to make a trip to Joplin to do a meeting. Kim Rollins did one from the Red River, which was amazing. Danny Ward down in Arkansas, fly tires around the conclave all the time, did one for us on tying his double deceivers. Donovan Clary is a guide down around the Blue River in Oklahoma and Tahlequah. He did one for us that was really good. We had one from a guy that has a resort in San Juan, New Mexico. These were things that we would have never had before. And so that was kind of cool and kind of changed the way the club still kind of kept everybody connected and together. And then this year we've done very, very well being able to get some live speakers again and kind of get back to what we call normal, if that's possible. But, the year's half over. We do have a speaker every month. We try to come up with somebody different. We just had the Fly Armory, which is a group that makes saddle patches out of from quail, which is really cool. Jared and Jesse are very cool people and doing some really neat stuff tying flies. We had them this past week. Ryan Walker, which everybody knows, is a smallmouth genius in the Ozarks. He paid me to say that, by the way. And he's going to be our speaker coming up. And then we're very fortunate that we have the National Fish Hatchery in Neosho. Their superintendent will be up to talk to us. And then, like most clubs in December, it's Christmas party time, and we kind of just kick back and kind of figure out where the year's been, and then we have our end of year banquet in February, and so we'll be putting it together, and it's always a fun time, and it is our only fundraiser, our major fundraiser of the year, and we'll start getting it planned and getting it put together. So I think, like a lot of people, we're just trying to survive the heat, try to get a few fishing trips in, and just kind of promote the sport as best we can.
Well, make sure I get an invite to that in February.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'd love to have you. It's a it's kind of a fun event. We have an auction. We have a couple different auctions and things, and we do a dinner. And again, it's just kind of a fun way to end the year and raise a little money. And I mean, we're like most clubs. Most of our money goes into um, projects and things we do with kids. I think we're like most clubs. Kids, terminally ill patients, and veterans are where it's at. That's what we like to do. Those are the people we like dealing with. So we do a lot of Kids Day activities at Roaring River. We do a lot of work with Charlie Tutu,
Hmm.
and from the fly fishing aspect or fishing aspect, and just try to. Those guys are just amazing. I mean, I'm not telling anybody on your podcast what you get emotionally and spiritually out of fly fishing, but when you can stand there and do that with a veteran, and a lot of times there's probably more talking going on than fishing,
Yep.
but it's a great way to spend an afternoon, and we just love working with them, and it's just enjoyable, just to be able to be a listening ear and be able to do it, with a fly rod in your hand. It's just a fun way to spend the afternoon.
It's I love doing these projects for vets. I love doing them for kids. Whatever we can do for anyone that's in need or not really in need, to just to do it. And a lot of times, people don't understand how much money that goes into doing those events.
Oh,
And a lot of times it comes out of our own pockets to make them happen. And that,
well, and I told people for a long time, I used to be heavily involved in youth baseball and youth sports.
mhm,
And I built a program several years back, involved into other things now, but I built a sports program for kids that were physically and mentally challenged to be able to
mhm,
play weekly events like baseball or soccer or basketball. And the concept was these kids and these families have so much they have to go through.
mhm,
And we wanted to provide a program that when you came inside the fence, all of that stayed outside.
yeah,
And in here was a special place that we didn't worry about wheelchairs and issues and money and all that. It was a special place where you could come and do that. And we've been able to do the same thing with fly fishing,
mhm,
where you can take kids. My group, we did a deal a couple weeks back for Seroptimus on a foster kid camp. Wasn't a lot of fly fishing, a lot of spinning reels, a lot of Zebco 33s, but a
yeah,
lot of foster kids that had never held a fishing pole. They're
yeah,
12 and 14 years old and they've never held a fishing pole. I mean, how is that even possible? And just to be able to stand there at that pond and hook up rods and throw them in the water and catch trout and then show them how to clean them and then cook them and eat them and just have that experience was just incredible because these kids never knew that that was something you could do.
yeah,
And you have that opportunity with a lot of people, veterans. Forget the problems, forget all of that heartache and problems that's in the outside world, and just stand by the water and just enjoy what's there. And yeah, it only lasts for a couple of hours. It may only be half a day, but it's almost rebuilding. I mean, it's hard to explain to people, but I mean, I love to fish and I love to fish by myself. But
me too.
when you can stand there with somebody and just experience the event and where you're standing right there, that's pretty cool and pretty powerful stuff for a lot of people that really need it.
You know, Fly fishing was my catalyst for healing from PTSD and other events in my life. And I like to be able to utilize it and this platform to be able to help as many veterans as I can. Um, it
And
is.
I think that's what's unique is that I never served. I was not in that era.
Mhm,
And so I have no idea what that is and what that means and what that experience is like. And there's really no way for you all to,
mhm,
but it's not. We try to tell people when we're working with Charlie Tutu and different ones that has nothing to do with it
mhm.
because I just know what the experience of the water and fly fishing can do, and
Yep.
that's all that matters. And so, we talk a lot about we don't really do much except just stand there. I got an ear if you want to talk. You can say anything you want. It's just two guys standing on the water, you know, trying to trick trout into biting a fly and enjoying the day. And you're just providing that vehicle of just being able to express that. And
Mhm.
it seems to work. I mean, we seem to bypass during our busy lives.
That's for sure. And when I first came out of the military, I looked at different big organizations that do the same thing, and I'm not going to name any names or anything, but everything
Sure.
that was wrapped up in those were it was all about visibility, taking pictures and showing off what they were doing, and all this red tape involved in just getting there and doing it. I'm like, this isn't what I'm about. I just want to fish, and I just want to get out there and use the healing properties of the outdoors to help me. And it did. And
Yeah.
now it's been able to, I have been able to use that to help others and remove all the red tape and all the BS that comes along with something that's got a big lot of flashy lights and shiny signs. I don't want any of that. If I can help
Yeah.
somebody, I want to get them out on the water. I don't want to have to ask 50 questions of somebody. If you're a veteran and you want to go fish, let's go fishing. That's
Well,
it.
and I used to tell people when I was doing the baseball thing, I don't know. My wife and I have been blessed that we don't. None of our kids have had any kind of disabilities or birth defects. We didn't have to go through that, and I
Hmm.
don't understand. I really don't. I have no idea what you go through in a daytime. I have no idea what veterans um, go through in a day's activity. I don't, and I don't claim to. But
Yeah.
what I do know, and what I did know back then, I know how to be a kid. I
Yep.
know how to play ball. I know how to enjoy baseball. I fish. I know how to enjoy the water, and I know how to do it. Now, by me showing you how to do that makes life better and teaches you so that's a win. Like I said, I wasn't a foster kid. I've never had a foster kid. I don't know what that day's like.
Yeah.
But I do know how to have fun with a fishing pole with a bunch of hungry trout in the pond, particularly when you've never done it before. I mean, we had girls screaming, and I can't touch that, and it's slimy, and I mean, it was a blast. We had fun,
Oh yeah.
and it's just, and like I say, when the whole night's over, we got to go back to work. We got to go back to our day to day. They got to go back to their issues, but for a few moments, nothing else mattered. And
Yep.
and to me, that's what's kind of cool about it. And like you said, it's it's amazing the people and the backgrounds that come together just because of fly fishing.
Oh
And
yeah.
like you said, there would be no other way. I mean, a lot of guys I'd met and become friends with and fish with, we would have never crossed paths in our other worlds if it wasn't for fly fishing.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. A couple of years ago, my daughters, my wife said, you got to go to the school with your daughters to the Girl Scout meeting because my daughters wanted to join Girl Scouts.
Right?
So I go to this school, and there's just a room full of women. I'm the only man there. And so nobody, I mean, every one of these women, they ask for somebody to volunteer to be a troop leader. They're all turning their heads. They're like, nope, nope, nope. And if nobody volunteered, they weren't going to have a troop for their school. So I raised my hand. Um, when we did this, I love kids, love them to death, love my own kids to death. And my daughters looked at me and they batted their eyes, Dad's going to do it. Dad's going to do it. So Dad volunteered to be a troop leader in the Girl Scouts. I know a lot about outdoor type stuff. I've been in the outdoors pretty much my whole life. Plus, I have the military
Right.
back. So I set all these programs up, dress right dress and everything the way I would have planned stuff in the military. So then it wasn't working well because I was too structured apparently, and so I thought, let's teach them how to fly fish. And so all these girls come in, and I taught all these between 8 and 10-year-old little girls how to fly fish over. I don't know. It was a 3 month period. We had a meeting a month, plus we had a couple outings. Before it was over with, my wife was coming to the meeting, and I was teaching all these moms how to fly fish too. And she said, they listen to every word. They're like in awe in everything that you say. I said, it's because I found something that they were all interested in, something that they had never done.
Never seen it
Something,
before.
they could be creative with the flies. They could do whatever. They didn't have to make a fly that caught a fish. If they thought it looked pretty and they could put it on a hook, that's what they did. And they were all thrilled. Um, that only lasted a year because COVID caught up to it, and they said it was done. And I was like, I'm done being a Girl Scout troop leader. 1 year was enough.
1 year was enough.
Yeah, that was it. It was painful when it came to Girl Scout cookies. Let me tell you.
Yes, sir. I can understand that.
And my oldest daughter, or my second oldest daughter, she turned 11 this year. She said, well, maybe you want to do Girl Scouts again. I said, if you want to do Girl Scouts, I'll take you and we'll find you a troop to be a member of. Dad's not doing it again. Sorry.
Dad's out.
But my 10-year-old and my 11-year-old and my 10-year-old now can cast better than most grown men. It's,
Crazy.
it, it's something that I love to do, so I always showed them, and they fought me tooth and nail. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to fly. I want to use my spinner rod." I was like, "Come on, you will enjoy this if you sit down and make a fly on your vise." Because both my daughters have full fly tying setups. They'll make a
Right.
fly. I said, "We make a fly. We'll take it to the river, and you catch a fish with it." I said, "You will be hooked for the rest of your life." And now they are hooked for the rest of their life. I got to
Yep.
keep them run out of my fly tying supplies because
I know what that is.
we
I
have
got
we
a
have
grandson. I got a grandson that's going to be 11, and fishing's been tough. His patient level is just not high enough for fishing. But about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he got into fly tying, and I can't get him to stop. I mean, it's just nonstop. Matter of fact, we were talking about the Branson show. I took him to the Branson show and let him tie for the first time at a show. And, he was tying with Terry Tanner and Charles Frank and John Bush and these guys, and he was just having a ball. Now, the fishing part of it's not so great, but the fly tying, he is locked in on.
the fishing will come. The fishing will
Yeah,
come. We have a Weimaraner in our house, and of course, she's a bird dog, so feathers she absolutely loves.
right.
Well, one day, drags all these feathers to her room to tie in her bedroom. The next thing you know, the Weimaraner comes out of her room, and she's got feathers sticking out of every way of her mouth, wandering around that house. And my wife's madder than a wet hen, but I just smile and just go on about it because it's
I
fun.
hear you. I hear you.
So you got to get big fishing trips planned up anytime soon?
I don't have not a lot. We have a club outing in Roaring River in September. I'll be at Kids Day at Roaring River, helping teach casting and fly tying with kids. I just got back. My two brothers and I take a trip every year on the anniversary of my dad's passing, which was about 5 years ago. Uh, After the first year, we started taking a trip together. We went down to Bull Shoals and Copper John Resort, spent 4 or 5 days, and did some fishing on the White and had a good time. And visited with the Flies and Guides Fly Shop and had some fun down there. But to be honest, right now I'm waiting for November the 13th. So Roaring River will go catch and release, and no creel, and
Hmm.
all the river rats will be gone, and it'll be quiet and peaceful. And you can go down there on the weekend and just catch trout.
My one of my favorite times of the year at Montauk is between November and February.
It's
And
just the greatest time ever. And I don't
and I
want to talk too much about it because I don't want a whole lot of people to know. Yeah, that catch and release at the state parks is it's a nice time. It's uh, it's a lot quieter and a lot more fly fishermen, it seems like, than the spinning fishermen, and it's just a fun time. I spend a lot of weekends down there when that season rolls around.
we bought a camper, I guess 2 years ago. Best purchase I've ever made as far as a large purchase. Is we bought a camper that we can all fit in, and it's a four season
Yep,
camper. So we go down there when there's snow on the ground and camp and fish. And I just
yep,
I typically don't fish in the park. Usually, my
right.
wife, my wife and kids do. I fish below the park more often than not. Mainly because I enjoy chasing the big browns, but of course I like to catch those big rainbows in the park as well.
Yeah,
But I love catching those big browns below the park.
yeah. We just got our we bought a camper, a trailer about 2.5 years ago or so,
Hmm.
and yeah, my wife and I, we really enjoy going out and just spending. The kids will laugh because I'll go places with them and they'll say, "What are you going to do?" And I say, "Well, I typically have a vice with me, and I typically have a couple of books, and
Hmm.
I really don't have to do anything. I can, drink coffee and read books and tie flies and watch the sunset, and then I like to cook a lot, so that's always fun to do when you're
Oh yeah, we. It's funny. We went to Florida last year. Well, we went to the Smoky Mountains, then went to Florida, and my wife has an at-home jewelry business, so she's got to take
right.
all these totes of jewelry with her to when she does her lives while we're traveling. And I got 4 or 5 totes of fly tying material, and we're fighting for room. And who gets the most room underneath the bed in our camper to take? Um,
Right.
we got to the Smokies, and I didn't tie a fly while we were in the Smokies. We spent so much time wandering through, the Smoky Mountain National Park that it just didn't happen. But we got to Florida, and I had never tied a saltwater fly in my life,
Right.
and I hadn't but one time fly fished for stuff in saltwater. So I went to the local shop there in Navarre Beach, and they had like two flies on the shelf. One was like a little crab, and one was like I don't know, I don't even
Yep.
know what the other one was. And I bought them, of course. And the next morning I went, I didn't catch anything. I didn't catch anything, and I thought, well, if I could tie a fly that a freaking smallmouth will eat or a trout, I'm bound to be able to tie a streamer something in the saltwater will eat. And I basically tied double deceivers with white deer hair on uh, 1/0 hooks. And the next day I was catching ladyfish every time they passed on the beach. It was funny. We set up a tent and my wife and kids were playing in the water. And I was just kind of lazing up there and underneath the tent because I'm just not a huge fan of the beach. Yeah. Every time they'd see that school of fish coming by, the splashing, they'd yell at me, and I'd get up and wade out there about chest deep, catch me a couple fish, and go back up underneath the tent. And it was just all day long like that. I had a great time.
I've never had a chance to fish saltwater. My wife and I went on a cruise a few years back, and we were down in the Caribbean, and I was down by Key West, and I was supposed to go on a fly fishing expedition, and the weather, Mother Nature changed our plans. But I never got out on the water. But I hit a fly shop and bought about 4 or 5 flies and put them in a shadow box hanging back behind me, and that was as close as I got. But one of these days, it'll be back on the list.
It's funny, those trips, they charge a lot of money to go saltwater fishing. I went on a tarpon trip I think we were in Cancun. I think Cancun.
Right?
And we went back into the mangroves. It was a great time. I didn't get one tarpon hooked, but had a great time. Longest I've
And
ever cast.
a lot of people have that same result. It seems like when they go tarpon fishing.
I casted a 10 weight for like 3 hours, and my shoulder
Oh
hurt so
wow!
bad I couldn't hardly lift my freaking right arm up for a couple of days. But we had went deep sea fishing the day before, and I caught I guess it's a sailfish, about 6 foot long. The thing was
Wow!
like reeling in a Volkswagen. So my arm was already tired from doing that. But
From
it
doing
was a
all the
good time.
casting.
Oh yeah. But I think that there's opportunities everywhere to do like a DIY trip. You don't have to go pay $400 or $500 to get taught how to catch fish. I mean, if you spend a little time on the water where you're located at, you can educate yourself enough that you can read water, you can see what small fish are swimming around that predators would eat.
Oh
You
yeah,
can you can get by without paying $400 or $500 to go for 4 hours.
well, and I think that's the fun thing about fly fishing. As you know, I work at a bait and tackle shop, and we're just now starting to do some fly stuff. And I've been switching, getting a lot of people to switch over, particularly now because they have the opportunity to buy stuff. But it's compared to bass fishing or crappie fishing or tournament fishing. I try to explain to people all the time. You can fly fish for anything. It's just a method. It's not species specific.
Yeah.
But fly fishing's just. I mean, I've had a lot of people that have just gotten into it the last few months, and they'll come back and say, "Well, there's a lot more enjoyable action to this than just the fishing. It's a lot calmer. It's a lot
Hmm.
more patience. You kind of notice a lot more about what's around you, and you can fish a lot of different waters. I mean, it fascinates me the guys that have been crappie fishing and bass fishing on all the lakes, and then you start telling them about the creeks and the rivers, and they're like, "Well, you can catch fish in those." Well, yeah, you can. There's water and there's fish in there, and you can go catch 70 crappie if you want to, with your scopes and all your stuff and your mega reels, or you can take a 10-foot 3 weight and go do a little Euro nymphing and catch some. Take your 7 weight and some streamers and go have a ball catching some smallies. But
Yep.
there's all kinds of things you can do. Take a 3 weight and some spiders and go down and just catch some panfish and bluegill and see how that works out. And there's just so much difference to it. And I think that's what a lot of people didn't know because of the stereotype of, well, I'm a traditional trout fisherman because you play with a fly rod. It's just, there's a lot more fun stuff to do that you can do with it besides stand there and, wear tall rubber boots and catch fish on the trout on the bank. So I think that's the fun thing is that people are realizing you can go to the Gulf and you can redfish. You can go to San Juan. You can go deep sea or saltwater fishing around Florida. It's just open to all kinds of things.
You know what's funny is my wife told me she grew up. Her dad, he fishes with night crawlers every time. He digs and sells night crawlers. He's a bullet sinker and a 2-aught hook. And he's going to catch him some catfish, bass, whatever he's catching with night crawlers. And
Right?
she absolutely despised fishing because it was dirty. And she's like, it's dirty. I'm catching these nasty, slimy catfish and all this stuff that she grew up doing. And I started her trout fishing. And I was like, look, she said, it's easy, it's simple. You're not messing with no dirty worms. You're not getting dirty. I said, but look how relaxing it is. It's easy. There's no pressure. You just go do. You have fun. I said you can start at making your own flies. I said then you fly fishing, and it's everything's been a process moving forward. And now she loves to fish.
Yeah.
Last time we went to Merrimack Springs, she outfished me. Sadly.
That happens a lot. Yeah. It's just fun to try to, I mean, we've had fun here lately trying to imitate um, bass rigs and bass hookups. Wacky worms are a big deal in the bass fishing world, Ned worms, Ned rigs, and that kind of stuff. And, it's funny because they'll say, well, you can't do that with a fly rod. And it's like, wait a minute. If I do this and if I use a little piece of monofilament or a piece of wire and I can tie this with chenille, and I can come pretty close to making that wacky worm. And I can throw it with a fly rod and, fish it with a sink tip or a sinking leader. And, you can, like I said, it's just, I can duplicate it, but it's just different when you do it with a fly rod.
I haven't found anything yet that I can't come pretty dang close on the vise with, and pretty dang close casting it and getting it in
Yep.
location. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about it is I can, instead of going to the store and paying a fortune for some of those baits. I mean, I used to buy jerk baits that were $12 a piece.
Oh,
I can make flies that look just like them, and it buy $12 worth of material and tie 10 of them or 12 of them.
yeah. That's when you don't spend all that money on those jerk baits and stick baits, and you buy all this fly tying stuff.
Wow.
looks like you got a fly. It looks like you got a fly shop in your downstairs room, and you really just don't want people to see it because they might think you have a problem.
Yeah, mine looks the same way. Mine's just out of camera, out of view over here.
I got in trouble, man. I was posting. There was a deal on Facebook about you should post your fly tying rooms. So I took a picture and posted mine, and I don't know. It was a couple hours or later that evening. My wife said, "So is that picture you posted downstairs, or was that at the bait shop?" And I really just didn't know how to answer that question. But it's she'd never come really down here to see how much stuff I'd really gathered up. But I've been tying since, like I said, the early 90s. I mean, I've still got stuff. I've still got stuff that I bought 20, 30 years ago that's still hanging on the wall because I needed it, for something.
It's funny. I just bought uh, 3 5 or 1 gallon bags of champagne and wine corks because I'm going to make popper heads out
Yep.
of them, and it's just add to the massive mix. You know,
They're around here somewhere. I don't know where I laid them. There's bags of them around because I had a lady call me one time and she says, "Do you know anybody that could use wine corks?" And I went, "Well, yeah, sure I do." And she said, "Well, I'd give them away if somebody come get them." Well, I figured I was going to go get like a Ziploc bag. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I got like a 30-gallon trash can full of them. I mean, and
Oh, nice.
it's kind of like, well, she goes, "Now you probably don't want this many," and I said, "Well, I don't, but I got a lot of friends,
Yep.
and we'll use them." And she was funny because she was like, "What in the world?" She said, "I was going to throw them away." I said, "Oh, don't throw them. They're valuable. Don't throw those away. We need them." So there's all kinds of things we can make out of those.
It's funny if you go out and look for cork, it's almost impossible to find.
Oh,
But by
and some
God, you can find wine bottle corks everywhere.
and some of those wine corks are hard. I mean, they're good stuff,
Oh yeah.
and you can make all kinds of things with those. You should keep them.
You know,
It's really sad. It's really there's probably somebody out there that can make a lot of money talking us through this hobby we have, but I don't know. There's a lot of us doing it.
I have. We were talking about the trapping industry and how the fur
Yep.
markets kind of took a dump, and I have raccoon furs. I have coyote. I have beaver. I have just about any four-legged critter that would be caught in a trap, fur hanging somewhere in my office here. And the other day, my wife likes to go to what is that donation place where
Go
you
like
get
Goodwill.
Goodwill. She loves to go to Goodwill, and there was a mink um,
Oh,
thing there.
Soul or yeah, yeah.
I thought of you, and I picked this up. She paid $3 for a strip of mink that was about 6 inches wide and like 6 foot long. I was like, that's the greatest buy ever.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because you cut that up into 2-inch patches, I can sell it for $6 or $8 a patch.
Yep.
I was laughing the other day. I had a guy in the bait shop, and I said, "What are you looking for?" He says, "Oh, I'm just kind of wandering around and looking. My wife's up at Hobby Lobby."
Hmm.
And he was talking about. He said, "Well, I've been thinking about getting into fly tying." And I said, "Well, first of all, I've got the best fly shop in town as far as being able to buy stuff. But Hobby Lobby's got some pretty good stuff." And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you buy yarns and different things." So once you get to be a fly tyer, you'll start seeing things a little different, and it may start seeing the real possibilities of some of the stuff you can buy.
You know, I laugh about this now, but my daughter likes to. I don't know what kind of dolls they are, but she bought all these dolls, and she's got them for her birthday because she really got into them. And then she got out of them real quick and started. For some reason, she cut all their hair. I said, "Why don't you put that hair in a bag?" I said, "What are you doing with that hair?" I said, "Oh, you just don't worry about it."
Don't worry about it.
I'm getting gallon-sized baggies of doll hair that are pink and green and all these other different colors. But
Yeah.
you see, materials it works everywhere.
Yep. And you look how many things are in the fly tying industry now that came out of the toy department at Target.
Yep.
And now it's a fly tying material that squirmy wormies and just it's unbelievable.
Well, John, I appreciate you being on the show tonight. It's been a wonderful time. And before we close it out, I want to thank our sponsors again: Cardiac Mountain Outfitters, Woolly Bugger Fly Company, LOZ Lures, Lazy River Road Outfitters, Grumpy Platypus Hackle, and Andronimus Fly Company. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Well, it would be because I'd just pay for it out of pocket. But I'm glad these guys support the sport. Um, they do a lot of great things for everybody. They make a lot of donations for me so I can give things to vets and to kids. So if you would, I'd appreciate you going out and show your support to them. Thanks again, John. I appreciate you being on the show. If you hang out for
Hey,
a
not a
minute
problem.
more.
I hope it was entertaining and worthwhile.
Oh, it was. That's for sure.
And I look